He called me temporary. The room went quiet after that. It was his launch party, a rooftop bar in Brooklyn. Investors, friends, people who suddenly knew his name. Someone raised a glass and asked how he stayed focused while building his company. He laughed. Honestly, he said, you just have to accept that some people in your life are temporary. His eyes flicked toward me, even the ones who help you in the beginning. A few people chuckled, someone clinked their glass, I smiled politely and sipped my drink. But in that moment, I realized something important. He thought the story of us had already ended. What he didn't know was that the most important part hadn't even started yet. And if you've ever supported someone who later acted like you never mattered, you'll probably understand exactly why I stayed calm that night. If stories like this interest you, consider subscribing. Most of the lessons in life don't arrive loudly. Sometimes they arrive disguised as success. 5 years earlier, we were living in a one-bedroom apartment in Queens. I worked full-time at a healthcare billing company. He worked on an idea. Every night he sat at the kitchen table with his laptop. Whiteboards leaned against the wall. Just one more year, he'd say. I believed him. So I paid the rent. Utilities. Groceries. Insurance. It never felt like a sacrifice back then. It felt like an investment. When friends asked how things were going, he'd smile and say, we're building something, but quietly, I was the one keeping the lights on. That didn't bother me, at least not at first, because I thought loyalty worked like compound interest. You put it in early, and eventually it grows. But the first sign something was changing came the year his app finally took off. Suddenly there were meetings. Investors, trips to San Francisco. He bought new clothes, a nicer watch, little upgrades that seemed harmless. Except one night, during dinner with his new partners, someone asked how we met. He leaned back casually. Oh, we were together before all this, back when things were simpler. Simpler. The words sat on the table between us. I said nothing. But that was the first time I noticed how differently he spoke when success was listening. Still, I told myself it was temporary. Pressure changes people, right? At least that's what I believed, until the second moment happened, and that one was harder to ignore. About 8 months after his first funding round, he asked if we could talk logistics. That's the phrase he used, logistics. We sat in the living room. He looked almost uncomfortable. I think we should keep things flexible, he said carefully. Flexible how? I asked. He shrugged. Life changes. Then he added something strange. You were perfect for the early stage of my life. Early stage, like I was part of a beta version. I nodded slowly, not because I agreed, because I was beginning to understand the direction of the story, and strangely, I didn't argue. That confused him. But the truth was, something inside me had already started shifting. I had supported his dream for years, but during those same years, I had quietly built something of my own, something he never really noticed. See, while working my billing job, I had been studying healthcare compliance, online courses, night certifications, quiet progress. At first it was just curiosity, then it became a skill. Then clients started appearing, small consulting projects, hospitals needed help navigating regulations, insurance audits. Most of my work happened after dinner while he coded. He never asked many questions. Success had already taken most of his attention. But that wasn't the part that changed everything. The real turning point came 2 weeks before that rooftop party. I received an email. A hospital network in Chicago needed a compliance consultant, a long-term contract, a very large one, the kind that changes your tax bracket. I read the offer 3 times. Then I accepted it. But I didn't announce anything yet. I wanted to see something first. Around the same time, his company scheduled the launch party, the one where he called me temporary. And during that party, while everyone celebrated him, I watched quietly, investors praising his vision, people laughing at his stories, the same stories I had watched unfold from our kitchen table. I didn't interrupt. I didn't correct anyone, because something interesting was happening. The room believed the version of the story he was telling. But stories have a strange habit. Eventually, the full version shows up. About an hour into the party, one of his investors approached me. "You must be proud," he said. I smiled. "I am." Then he asked a simple question. "So what do you do?" Before I could answer, my boyfriend laughed lightly. "She's between things right now, between things." That was the moment, the mini realization, not anger, not embarrassment, just clarity. He genuinely believed the version of reality he was performing. And suddenly, I didn't feel the need to correct him anymore, because 2 weeks later, reality corrected itself. The Chicago contract became public inside the healthcare compliance world, LinkedIn announcements, industry newsletters. Suddenly, people were reaching out to me. One afternoon, his company's CFO sent me an email. They needed regulatory consulting help for hospital integrations tied to their platform. He didn't know I had already signed the Chicago contract. But when we met for coffee to discuss it, the conversation felt very different. He looked slightly nervous. "Your reputation came up in a few meetings," he admitted. "I didn't realize you were doing this at this level." I nodded. It grew slowly. He rubbed his hands together. "Well, we'd love to work together." I watched him carefully. The same man who once called me temporary, now speaking like a client. I didn't bring up the party. I didn't mention the past. Reverse psychology is a strange thing. Sometimes silence explains everything. So I simply said, "Send the proposal." And that was it. No dramatic confrontation, no revenge speech, just a contract. 6 months later, his company became one of my consulting accounts. Professional, polite, clear boundaries. The rooftop party story slowly faded, but something else replaced it. Perspective. Success changes how some people see you, but growth changes how you see yourself. And once that shift happens, certain conversations don't even feel necessary anymore. Sometimes the most powerful response isn't proving someone wrong. It's simply continuing forward until the truth becomes obvious on its own. So I never corrected him about calling me temporary. Because in the end, I think we both realized something. I wasn't temporary, I was just early. And if you've ever watched someone underestimate you before realizing who you became later, you already know why patience can be the quietest kind of justice. If this story felt familiar, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Sometimes the strongest chapters in life are the ones we write quietly.